15 minutes, like grab the journal, go outside, have the walk, but schedule it in so that it doesn't get lost, because Parkinson's rule says what doesn't get tasks expand to the time you give them, right? Tasks expand to the time you give them. If you step into a day and it's full, it's full, yes, but what if you can carve out 15, 30 minutes a day for a mindfulness practice, whether it is any of these somatic work, noticing, be more intentional in noticing where you are, taking it outside, doing a journal, picking up a prompt, picking a charm. These are very small things, but they can really have that cascade effect onto people's well-being and quality of life. Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the CoachingMany Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Evana Valle, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. CoachingMany is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the CoachingMany podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time. Today is the power of the pause. I'm really excited about today's episode because it is actually going to frame out our next few, the trifecta of the next few. We're going to do 3 episodes related to the power of the pause. So welcome back, Evana. What are you thinking about as you think about the power of the pause?
It's so rich because there's so many layers and facets when we think of pause, especially as we're having conversations in groups and teams, because I think the power of the pause supports those deeper transformational conversations that we have. And I also think it's fundamental in creating that trust, safety, and connection so people can pause. So I think it's also a prerequisite in order for us to actually be able to do that. And the work that I do really supports that somatic, that grounding, that layer of it. But that's only one facet of pause. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to talking about different tools, because it's not only the body that can help support the pause. So this is rich, and I have a lot of joy on this one.
Yeah, and I see that. And I really, I'm reminded, of course, for those that have done the Grounded Labyrinth, this is the landscape of the Grounded Labyrinth. And, there's 2 parts to that. One, it's about the grounding. It's about finding our core, finding our center, which may be done through meditation or mindfulness. It might also be done in nature, right? That's my sort of stake in the ground. And then there's the labyrinth piece, which is about being here now and also going on a journey. And that journey can be metaphorical, it can be physical, it can be, geographical as well. So I think today's episode, for those that are familiar with our group and team coaching superpower framework, today is all about the Grounded Labyrinth. And if you've never heard about the group and team coaching superpower quiz, hope that this is going to be an inspiration for you to check it out. It's something you can do on your phone. It's going to give you insights into 5 different styles of coaching. And the thing is, unlike strengths, and with our superpowers, especially as group and team coaches, we want to grow our capability, our capacity in all 5 areas. And we're actually starting with the Grounded Labyrinth, which is the one based on 3.5 years of research to date, which has the lowest sort of presence in the coaching community that has taken the quiz. So invitation for you to be part of this, because it is part of research, but more importantly, it is probably the missing piece. It may be the area that you're least comfortable really stepping into. So where do we start? You took us to somatic. What is somatic coaching? What is important about this? How do we do it in a group, team, or even one-on-one environment?
Yeah. And before I go there, I want to touch on something as you talked about the labyrinth, if I may, because I think it actually will touch into the somatic piece and the bigger dialogue. Like when we think about the labyrinth, it's that going in, that inward journey, right? Which I think is part of what that pause, that spaciousness that we as coaches, as we as leaders, as we as parents around the kitchen table really want to allow for. And so as we do that for others, it also means we do it for ourselves. And so for me, the labyrinth, that pause, is creating the space, that container for one to go inward, to take that pause, to reflect, or we can talk about in coaching terms, that awareness, like how are we doing that from, to activate awareness through pause. Yeah. And so that way, in doing that, we don't stay there in the labyrinth. We don't stay in the center of the labyrinth. Mm-hmm. It then allows us to come back out. And that looks like, whether it be in conversations, in relationships, through results, through collaboration, that type of stuff. So I think part of that for me is, I think, really central in terms of the grounded labyrinth and the space that we hold in that range as coaches. And I think I've said this on a previous episode, as a new coach, this was one of the things that I was very passionate about, developing that skill, that capacity as a coach. And it was because I needed that myself, right? I needed to have that. Yes. And so oftentimes we teach what we have to learn ourselves, and we're a few steps ahead. So that inquiry, even, what is what is your relationship to pause? Yeah. If you're listening to this question, go ahead.
And I think it's really important, because I'm thinking already, people are like, oh, this is really soft. But, if you're coaching teams right now, the team needs to pause. People cannot run at Mach speed forever and ever. We know that high performance is about cycling through periods of high intensity work and then taking rest and renewal periods. And so the pause might be a team actually stepping out of the office for a few days. Last week, I was with a team, and it really was about just putting the pause button on. It was about coming together and having the conversations, easy and challenging, so that they could really think about what is next. And in order to be in the pause, we have to stop. We have to be able to look at things from multiple angles, from the strategic right down to what is happening at the ground level. And that may involve not just body wisdom, but cerebral wisdom, gut wisdom. We're looking at, say, a head, heart, guts, hands and feet model. We want to make sure that we're also doing things like journaling. So there's many doorways into this realm. Yeah. And I'd like to invite our listeners to think about what is comfortable and what is a stretch as we go through these many varied ones, because I've got 8 on my list right now that we're going to touch on. 8 different doorways into the power of the pause. So where do you want to start? Maybe you do one, I do one, and then we work through the list.
Yeah. So I think for me, sometimes we think, oh, it has to be we have to be certified or whatever, but I think we often take things for granted, like our breath. Just breathing, and just breathing, and even which can be an extension of meditation, but just helping people ground. Let's just have it be really kind of general, grounding people. So are you allowing people the space to come into the room through breathing, through just kind of naming what is, so they can be present? That's a moment of pause. We've talked about this in different episodes. You have so many amazing creative tools, whether it be the charms, the dice, photos. I often will create my own visuals based on the photos I've taken on my travels and my adventures. Yeah. And so it's not like you have to go buy everything, but you really want to say, how am I allowing people to actually even come into the room? So, breath work, there's a lot of training in breath work. And I think part of what I'm talking about, without going there from a science standpoint, is the nervous system. How part of the pause is actually allowing people to be here, in terms of show up, in terms of even regulate, that safety. I'm going to invite people, think about a situation you've been in where you weren't able to show up and be, and how that affected your hour meeting or your conversation at the dinner table, right? Like some of the things that we're talking about is the pauses, so people can actually be present and show up, so what does that look like? And to me, that really is that regulation. Like, are we supporting the space and the container for people to do that? It can be with
Mhm.
breath, with breathing. It could be just with even inviting people to close their eyes and you talk them through something, a visualization to help them show up. It can be any number of things, as you said, and even it can be even having people just get up and move, and like mindfulness, like helping people just move and feel. I want you to feel the floor under you. I want you to feel the fan that's blowing in the room. I want you to hear the
Sure.
birds chirping outside. So it's small things that can actually help people just be here, start showing up in your conversations. And like you said, even teams right now need it more than ever. We all need it because there's this continuous cycle of go, 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 go.
Yeah, without any breathing, for sure. And I've had this behind me. So,
Yeah.
part of the journaling Sparker cards.
Mhm.
These just quick 52 is even just getting people to pause and think intentionally, what are we aiming for? Where are we going? What are we looking at? So journaling, I think, has really become, it's finding its way in a resurgence. And hopefully we'll have an alumni of our group coaching essentials join us. She's the head of the International Journaling Association, Linda Monk. And I'd love to sit down with
Mm.
Linda because Linda has all the stats behind journaling. But as a longtime journaler myself, I really enjoy those moments of being able to pause, even if it's just at the end of the day. I know in the summer I got a journal at the dollar store and was pretty vigilant with it. I haven't done anything with it for the last 2 weeks, but it does create clarity. And I know many of our
Totally.
have used morning pages, right? If we look at Julia Cameron's work, The Artist's Way,
Mm.
inevitably a lot of people say, do you do morning pages? And while I don't,
Mm.
I would say my power of the pause is what I'm going to do after this. Get to the gym, right? The pool just
Yeah.
closed yesterday, so I've
Yeah.
lost my outdoor swims for
Oh.
6 months pretty consistently since May until October. I've been able to do, I swim about 50 to 70 laps a day.
Mm.
That's a long pause, right? But
Mhm.
it's interesting. I've really noticed this year I've been very intentional on seeing, like, where does my mind go? Because there is something
Mhm.
that we want to get the mind into this automatic flow. And for me, that's swimming. For others, it might be outdoors and hiking. But what are you doing to actually just allow your brain to breathe? Because it will shed all its ideas, but then you might find some very creative insights or clear insights. It doesn't even have to be creative, but just clarity comes
Mhm.
as part of the meditation, which
Yeah.
could be through movement, not just breathing.
Totally. Totally.
So,
And just to add, even, I think you touched on something so important is that whole writing for clarity. Like it's one thing, especially for people who are cerebral. And I notice that I really go more to journaling when I am in a transition. So right now I'm in a transition. And so I'm actually going to journaling. And I've actually
oh, we lost your voice. Isn't that interesting? So just as you said, you're transitioning to journaling, I think you were saying that you're doing writing and no voice. So we're gonna get you to take the ears out. Yeah, let's try that one again.
okay.
Okay,
So
now we
for
could hear you. There we go. Now we can
yeah.
hear you.
So what I was saying is journaling is so important. You said in terms of clarity, but it's also a place of processing that gets you
Processing.
clarity.
Yes.
Right? And so I find, and because you say, in times have changed, like journaling is a great resource to help people kind of re- process what they have to do. And I
Mm.
find myself even like, whether it be journaling in on paper, but I'm actually experimenting with digital journaling. So using my
Digital.
iPad.
Nice.
Yeah. You know,
That's
and so
fun.
yeah, so it's just and it's that experimentation. I pulled out another journal and I created around and I do this with my own clients is the self-worth journaling. So 3 question
Ooh.
prompts. What
Mhm.
are 3 things you want to acknowledge about yourself today?
Mm.
What are
Mhm.
things that you did to support your needs
Yes.
being satisfied? What are 3 things that you're proud that you did today? So I think journaling is a great resource, and we often underestimate the impact it can to create pause.
Yeah.
So,
And as you're saying that, like pause doesn't have to be long. I was working with a group yesterday and, they were amazed at just 2 minutes of the timer going, right? And that's just 2 minutes. So what are we doing to just even create nano windows of it? I think we could have an hour-long episode on this. So I'm going to go to my list here because I do want to go take us one other tangent. I've got 8 here. We've probably touched on 3 or 4. I'm gonna put we did outdoors. So, think about outdoors, but it takes me to the journey, right? So back to Labyrinth. What is the journey? Like, are you going in the regular spaces all the time? Or are you actually giving yourself a gift by going somewhere new, which has the ability to sort of open up your mind, even if it means like I walk all the time. We're right beside a nature preserve. So again, I can do a lot of different trails very easily. And a few weeks ago, I was out with a friend of mine and we went into a different part of the preserve that I've never been in. All of a sudden, heightened senses because it's like, ooh, this is a different area. And it was so interesting because I was looking up and she was looking down and there was a snake. And I never think of this area as a snake area. Up at the cottage all the time, right? Like it is just natural that I see snakes every day. But it was so interesting because I was so focused on looking up to the sky that I didn't see this snake over to like our right. So within the pause, where are your senses going? Like what are you focusing on and what are you not focusing on? Which is a really interesting, like I think the snake one is really interesting. It wouldn't have bit us because we don't have venomous snakes here, but just interesting that I was so in the moment of looking at the sky that I did not normally. It's very unusual for me not to be looking on the ground because I have worked in and spent life in many places of the world that had venomous snakes. And you just don't know. They could even show up in your kitchen as they did in one of the houses that I lived in. It's just like power of the pause. How are you resting? How are you actually just pausing and being here now in the moment with everything?
You know, what came to mind when you were saying that, Jen, was even although you didn't articulate, what I took from that was like you were looking up, she was looking down, but also like in having that journey, how does that open up like your perspective on stuff, right? Like how you look at things. I was on the weekend, I was with a friend and we were on a sailboat. Now we were totally in port, but I had never sat on a sailboat looking at the city and
Yes.
that I live in. And I saw these steep mountains that I've lived in this city for 5 years, and I began to see things that I've never noticed before. And so to me, when I hear journey is like putting yourself in different spaces allows people to actually see things differently, maybe expand it. I actually got very clear through that experience how much I love this city, how much I love this area. And it took me sitting on a sailboat, not in the middle of the sea, in port, but just like in gratitude of where I am, but notice that. And so again, it's like sometimes we think I'm going to say this, like sometimes we think we have to over design as coaches, but even with what you're talking about, it's in these simple experiences, in these simple moments.
Yeah.
That
and really,
yeah.
Yeah. And I think, my quest, I'll use that term, the quest this year in this business has really been about starting to breathe life. And it's not even starting to breathe life because it's been stuff that we've been doing for 21 years, but really putting a spotlight on the experiential roadshow, which this year has been the retreats from Barbados, looking at memorability and stickiness. It's the experience design consulting work that I do. It's the, creating these wow moments for people. And it doesn't have to be huge, right? It really is about these like very small things. And so in all of our ways, we can be activating more of the power of the grounded labyrinth because I think, we may be in societies where there's a lot of like bold catalytic firecracker energy, provocation. But what about the quiet stillness of the
Yeah.
Grounded Labyrinth. And I think, again, we've looked at a couple of things like the journaling, the pause, the outdoor. Talk a little bit about somatic. What do you do
Yeah.
from a somatic lens? Because that's a whole other category of the power of the pause.
Somatics, I think, are really, it's another doorway for people on that labyrinth journey to go
Mm-hmm.
inward,
Yes.
because so many of us are so cerebral that we actually sometimes forget, dismiss, or discount the wisdom of our hearts, our
Mm-hmm.
guts. And so to me, somatic really is a doorway to access deeper wisdom, especially in a time of change, in a time of choice. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's around like helping people reconnect. And the people that I work with oftentimes don't really, it's a very uncomfortable thing because they're so cerebral. And so a lot of the time, it's in that meet people where they are, it's just a matter of inviting them to, let's just take a couple breaths, but really like, I want you to put your hand on your heart.
Yeah.
And I want you just,
Yeah.
there's a place for all voices, for all
Mm-hmm.
ideas. And so
Mm-hmm.
it really is a grounding place, but it's also a space where people then can start making integrated or aligned choices.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know? And it is, and it's not something, so mindfulness is a way to do it, but also just like even using the somatic of your hands on your heart, even helping people connect to like, okay, I'm sitting in a chair. I just want you to feel your bum in your chair.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that
Mm-hmm.
like what are and it's and like what are the sensations? What are you noticing? What are the thoughts that are coming up as you connect to your heart? So it allows a more intimate, a deeper connection relationship to self, which is why I think the labyrinth is a beautiful metaphor of that inward journey that can then
Mm-hmm.
take some pause for some outward expression.
Yeah. And what's coming to mind
Yeah.
is seeing our conversation sparker charms in action a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. So I was doing this keynote to like 100 people spread out in this beautiful room, the Atlantic Ocean in the background, sun streaming in, and these tables of like 8 to 10 people. And I brought in the charms, and as you can imagine, just the energy, right? But it was the pause. It was the pause, and that became an anchor point for these relationships. Some new, some that were established, but the pause of just having a shared moment together with a charm as an anchoring metaphor. And so again, it doesn't have to be big. It can be small. It can be a habit as well. So one of the things that I'm really excited about, and I don't have it here with me, but I would put as a final piece that I want to spotlight in the power of the pause is just people's regular planning process. Having 5, 10 minutes a day to really think about where you're going, what you've done, what's worked, what's not
Yeah.
is critical. And I've seen through the Amplify program and now through the Flow Flex skill programming just how important it is for people to actually get that clarity, whether it's a Monday morning, where am I? What do I need to achieve? What is important to be doing? And building in space for. Like if we don't create a pause, we're in this hamster wheel of just go, 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 go. And I do believe, and again, it's probably the background for me as a planner, it's so important to take 5, 10 minutes regularly. So since 2018, I've been asked by the Plan Do Track facilitators to have an annual calendar. And I have created one now for 2026. It's live, it's in print, it's upstairs. I can't show it, but it's a daily planner for 2026, 15-minute windows. So even if you say, oh, I don't have time, 15 minutes, like grab the journal, go outside, have the walk, but schedule it in so that it doesn't get lost. Because Parkinson's rule says what doesn't get tasks expand to the time you give them, right? Tasks expand to the time you give them. If you step into a day and, it's like, oh, it's full, It's full, yes, but what if you can like carve out 15, 30 minutes a day for a mindfulness practice, whether it is any of these somatic work, noticing, be more intentional in noticing where you are, taking it outside, doing a journal reflection, picking up a prompt, picking a charm. These are very small things, but they can really have that cascade effect onto people's well being and quality of life. So I do want to really spotlight that as, simple, probably something that's going to benefit you not only from a mindfulness perspective, but your business as well. So
Yes, absolutely.
ripple effect. Total ripple effect.
Well, and I think what you've touched on is so, so, so important around this planning, this tracking. Like that is part of the pause. Even like we have an episode on intentionality. What
Yeah.
is the intention of the day? I don't have it here. I have it in Canada, but there's also a digital like that. There's actually another structure which is called the gratitude journal, and it was really hot at one point. And it really
Mm-hmm.
does set you up for what are you grateful for, but also what is your affirmation, but also what are the three things? Like, let's get
Three
focused.
things. Yeah.
Three things, right? And then at
Yeah.
the end of the day, circling back and bringing that closure to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, so when we talk about pause, I'm thinking in the arc of a journey, whether it be with a one-on-one client, a group coaching client, even
Mm-hmm.
a family vacation for that matter. It is that evolution that kind of
Yes.
unfolds, and that checking in and going, okay, is this even from a core competency, establishing agreements? Like, okay, the group wants to change this. Let's just take a moment and pause. Okay, this is what I'm hearing as the group coach, right? They own their journey, bringing the journey back in. And when you were speaking earlier, I'm like, oh my God, I've never even said this on the podcast. My
Yep.
company name is Evolve Quest Journeys. This is
Okay. There you go.
foundation of my company, right? And so it's like, yeah, like we are all on our journey and we're all here to
Mm-hmm.
evolve. So whether I'm working with people in transition or life
Mm-hmm.
quakes or women who or Italian natives wanting to build that English is, or even leaders, even through the potentials realized through our programs, through our laser calls that we offer, a moment of pause, a
Pause.
moment
Yeah.
to be able to create that space, that container for people to get
Mm.
grounded and know, wow. And I use your charms in all of them,
Yeah.
whether it be in my personal life or even the dice, I'm using it in different ways because it actually also creates that spark. That's why they're conversation products.
Sparkers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
They're sparkers.
to pause, but also to spark conversation and ideas and
Mm-hmm.
flourishing. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really exciting on, we started with a power of pause, but there's so many different ways. And I am going to invite our listeners to like, what are you already doing?
Yeah.
And taking an inventory of where you are and where you want to go. What of these that we've said to you, that we've shared, and there's more beyond this, might you dip your foot in and experiment with in service of that journey, that growth, that pause, that evolution?
And so here's 9 that I captured during our call.
Okay.
Well-being, pause, meditations, breath work, somatic, journaling, outdoors, mindfulness, planning. So that's 8. And then I had pause. Pause is 9. But I think there's just
Yeah.
so many different elements. And as you said, yeah, what's the landscape? Where do we want to go? How does it provide focus? How does it provide clarity? How does it build our well and create more resilience? How does it allow us to just simply be here now?
And what are the needs of our clients? And even give them the option, right? I have these conversations all the time. I think I need to know what they know, what they need. No, it's
No.
okay. Hey, so what do we want to do today?
Yes.
Do we have energy that we need to move? Because we can pause by doing mindfulness walking. No,
Mm-hmm.
are we more pensive? Okay, well, let's do a journal prompt. Pull out the journaling cards and pick one that resonates. Give them
Pick one.
choices. It's not the how do I say this? It's not the what, it's the how. How do you want to activate that pause? Because there's so many different ways.
So many different options. As always, we come to the end of this episode, but this will spark future guests that we're going to have around this topic. So we hope that you'll enjoy it. It's also the first of the series of 5. So we are going to be spotlighting all 5 of the group and team coaching superpowers. If you haven't taken the quiz, this is the invite to find that now. You can also just Google group and team coaching superpower quiz with my name. It's been around long enough that you'll find it online. It takes 2 minutes and you'll get a quick report. Once again, now, in closing, I want to spotlight we need all 5 of the superpowers. It is not just one strength, one superpower that we need. We need to activate it all. And my guess is probably this one might be one of your lesser developed or not. Maybe it's your super strength. And just remember that our super strength can also be a bit like kryptonite and create its own issues. So, Evana, what's your takeaway as we go to wrap up? What's your takeaway from today's call?
Diversity. There's so many options to pause, and it's fundamental at different points, even if I'm looking at the design of a program or of a session. And it really comes down to it's a foundational element for that trust, safety, connection, that safety for receptiveness of coaching, for receptiveness of that journey, whatever that unfolds. I think it's fundamental. There's design to it, but it also creates a foundation to open up more exploration, more curiosity, more transformation.
And I'll just leave it with the keychain, right? There's 5 of them now. Well, I keep adding them every time, but it is the grounded labyrinth energy of just the reminder of how do I bring more of this into my day? How do I even take 5-10 minutes to do the journaling or the prompts or the walk outside?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Stay tuned. Let others know. We think this is one of those episodes where your colleagues will also benefit, and maybe you're doing co-coaching. So share this over to at the CoachingManyPodcast.com or your favorite podcast player. And until we meet again, enjoy and enjoy the power of the pause.